We'll start with Jacob Rayburn.
Hey, Thomas, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I don't have as good a background as you, so I hope you don't mind the faceless questioner.
No
Um,
worries.
I imagine, unfortunately, you've gotten very used with all sorts of Zoom backgrounds.
Yeah, it's been like that. Classes, football meetings, everything. Everything is Zoom.
Are you a good Zoom learner, Thomas?
Yeah, so for some classes, I kind of like being able to have like an independent schedule, take classes whenever I have time. So that's nice, but Zoom can be a little difficult just because you're on your computer. Like there's so many other distractions pulling at you, like your texts show up, all that. So I'm decent. I'm trying to be better though.
So I will connect this to football and ask. We've heard about um, the potential for you guys being ahead of schedule with the mental side of the game because of the extra meetings you had with coaches. Wondering your thoughts on that, and have you seen things that you think are connected to that extra meeting time?
Yeah, I think that the fact that we've had so much like meeting time on Zoom prior to camp, because obviously, as you guys know, we kind of had a delayed start, definitely helped in some aspects and was weird in others. I think a lot of learning goes on, obviously, in meetings, but a lot of that just gets applied when you actually play, when you're running it on cans or on a man or something like that. So not having that opportunity definitely hurts, but being able to actually get all of the install in and the mental side of it is great, especially for the older guys where it's more of a brush up or review. But it's always better to be able to actually run the plays on a man.
Our next question will come from RJ Abadia with the bootleg. Go ahead, RJ.
Hey Thomas, good to get you in here right before Election Day.
Good to be here.
My first question is just about your fellow defensive line guys. There's a lot of talent that doesn't have a lot of experience, and I'm just wondering what you've seen so far from guys like Ryan Johnson and Dalen has some experience, but him, Josh Picola, just your room and where it looks right now.
I think our room has gotten bigger and stronger, and I think that's shown itself in the way that we've been setting the line of scrimmage throughout camp. So guys like Tomas, Ryan, D Wade, and Josh are all bigger bodies, stronger bodies than they were last year. So when it comes to not getting moved, moving the line of scrimmage back, making plays in the backfield, just playing more aggressive, because all those guys, like Josh was a freshman last year, he's a sophomore now. Tomas was already experienced. Ryan's going into the senior year, Dalen's going into the senior year, I'm going to my junior year. This isn't anything about learning the playbook and all that. It's really just about being aggressive and attacking, So I think that as a defensive line, the experience on top of the fact that we've all gotten bigger and stronger has been able to kind of show up in the tape with us pushing people back in a way that I don't think we were as consistently last year.
And just a quick follow-up, where are you being deployed technique-wise? I know you're a guy who can kind of move around a lot. Have you had experience at multiple spots already so far?
Yeah, so I play damn near everything. Shade, 3-tech, 4-tech, 5-tech, 6-tech on a tight end. So I mean, that's the way our defense works. We have a nickel setup, a base setup. So it's versatility pays in our system. So I've been trying to be ready for anything that comes at me, whatever technique that comes at me. So you should be seeing me everywhere.
Do you like moving around over the course of a game?
Honestly, I do. I think different techniques are appropriate for different downs and distances. So for me, I'm a bigger guy. So sometimes when I move inside on a third down or something like that, I can outspeed a guard or a center, or on first downs when I'm outside, 4-tech, 5-tech with run stuff. I can be better with that, but I like moving around, especially when it has a lot of relevance to how we can play each down.
Our next question will come from Janie McCauley with the AP. Go ahead, Janie.
Hi, Thomas. I'm Janie. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Yep. Thanks for taking a few minutes. I was wondering when you were talking about all the Zoom meetings and everything before you guys really got going again, and other college football teams around the country were playing. And how did you guys stay motivated? How did the coaches and your teammates help and you guys all help each other stay motivated. And also just coming out of the gates now and seeing Oregon in game one. I mean, those are my two questions for you tonight, I guess.
Yeah, so I think that for a long period of time, it was up in the air as to whether we'd be playing or not. And I think what kept us motivated is that we knew that at some point we would be playing. It was just a matter of when. Was it going to be this fall? Was it going to be next year? Regardless, it wasn't a time for us to take the foot off the gas and stop learning and stop getting better. So it's obviously easier to work when you have a date set and an opponent set. And I think that happened with Oregon, where people were like, damn, like we're actually playing somebody now. But in general, like we understood that, shoot, we got to get ready for whenever we're going to play, and there's never a time when you're on campus training with your guys where you're just doing it to do it. So I think that was what got us through. Was it's like, all right, there's some uncontrollables here in terms of the COVID response, when we're going to be allowed to play, even county guidelines that we have to deal with. But the one thing that we can't control is our attitude and our focus on the work, so we can get better every day in anticipation of whenever we do get to play. So yeah, it's exciting to have Oregon on the schedule now, though.
Yeah. Were there some unique activities maybe that you could share specifics on where you had to do things in small groups, and maybe there were some fun, I guess maybe not outings per se, but some days where you got to know some teammates better than you would have if you were all in the big group because of this situation?
Yeah, so practices for a minute, like while we were working out pre-camp, were kind of weird just because there were all these social distancing guidelines of like, you can't touch the same bag as somebody else. You have to wait for 3 minutes to get it cleaned, all that sort of stuff. So that made for an interesting like practice dynamic. And then in general, when we first got here, we were put into small groups, like pods of people. So it wasn't all like your position group. It was usually different guys that just happened to like coincide with when you came to campus. So guys who you hadn't really had that much experience with because they weren't on your side of the ball or your position group or whatever, you got to kind of have a lot of time with them just because they were really the only people that you were allowed to see constantly, So it was definitely a different experience, but it gave you a wider breadth of people to kind of get to know on the team.
Are you willing to share one or two guys from your pod who maybe you learned something unique about them? Maybe so-and-so took a cooking class during their time away, or, something unique or a skill that they have that you didn't know about, or something fun.
So the thing for me specifically was that with my pod, even though a lot of the guys weren't in my position group, most of them were in my class, at least, so I had at least a common base with them. So darn, I'm trying to think of like an interesting story or something that they developed during quarantine. I think a lot of guys were in different situations during quarantine with what they had to work out with. Some people had actual gyms. Some people were kind of more like do-it-yourself DIY type people. So I kind of saw that a little bit, but other than that, I'm not sure if I have an interesting story for you, unfortunately.
Okay, but somebody put their own gym together when he.
Yeah. So okay, this is actually okay. I do have one.
Okay.
I know Houston Hamulai. He's a fullback. Wears the same number as me. I know on Instagram, he was posting all these different crazy like home workouts he was doing with putting rocks in backpacks in Utah, doing his own thing. Like he was getting it in however he could. So that was some creative stuff. Me personally, I stick to just weights in my backpack. I didn't go with the rocks, but hey, use nature, use whatever's around you to get your work in.
Thank you. I like it.
No worries. Thank you.
We have time for 2 more questions, so we'll head to Jacob Rayburn and then finish with RJ Abadia. Go ahead, Jacob.
All right. So, well, it's kind of a toss-up in my head what I was going to ask, and I think I'm curious your take on something that we spoke with Coach Reynolds about. I think I spoke with Coach Reynolds about at the end of spring when he was talking about Dalen. There wasn't anyone for Dalen to be behind now, or like he had to take on the role that Mike had previously had, and Dalen couldn't kind of wait anymore for his turn. It is his turn. And I think a similar thing maybe could be said about Ryan Johnson. I'm wondering your view on whether or not you see any sense of urgency from them or any change in them this offseason, because I think there's a greater expectation on them right now.
I mean, I think that all of our guys, like what we preach is that the whole next man up mentality, and that if you're not preparing to start, then that's a problem, because even if you're getting 10 to 15 or 20 snaps a game and you're not getting 60, for those 10 to 15 snaps, those are pivotal. So regardless of whether you're looked at as a starter or a guy who's coming in rotationally, you have to prepare like you're going to be that guy. So personally, like I think I've seen the urgency from all of those guys throughout spring and right now, because football is a frugal sport. People can go week to week and get injured. You can be a starter one week and not be playing the next. So I think, there has been somewhat of an increased urgency, but I mean, that's how they prepare normally. So I wouldn't say it's been too much of a departure from that.
All right. Thanks, Thomas.
No problem. Thank you.
Our last question will come from RJ Abadia.
I'm going to cheat and try to get 2 in, but if I only have 1, talk to me about the guys on the other side of the ball. You're obviously spending some time working against the offensive line, and there's a lot of guys competing for spots there. Has anyone stood out to you from your vantage point?
No, I think the offensive line has been solid. Specifically, the guy that I've been going against a lot, who I think has really improved year over year, is Branson Bragg. He's a sophomore now, so I personally think that freshman and sophomore year jump is huge. Speaking just from my perspective of how I felt, and I think the same thing's going on with him. I think he's gotten stronger in the offseason by a lot. I think his technique has improved, and he's already like a pretty nasty offensive guard. So I think that's starting to reflect, and we're having some real good battles in the trenches. I'm excited to see where he goes and develops this year. So yeah, offensive line as a whole has been solid, but specifically if I had to put one guy's name out, Branson Bragg.
And then just my last one, I asked Malik about what he planned to do during the season in terms of activism and working on some of the causes that you guys have been working on all along. And he mentioned the Cardinal Black organization, I guess we would call it at this point. Can you kind of define what that is, given that, I mean, there's no students on campus, so it might not be what you want it to be, but what is your hope for that? And what is your involvement with that?
So the involvement, I'll start with that first. So around the killing of George Floyd, I think a lot of Stanford, like Black Stanford student athletes, were extremely dismayed at what was going on in the country, and some of kind of people's responses institutionally to this and their lack thereof. So Cardinal Black was something that me, Maya Dodson, Jacob Mangan-Farrar, Kyla Bryant, and so many other Black Stanford student athletes decided to start, just because we felt like we needed a community that had all of our interests at mind and at heart. So that was the first part of it. And then we wanted it to be a springboard for like community initiatives and community action in terms of things like voting or community outreach in like East Palo Alto. And I think what we envision for the organization to be is, first off, a place that Black Stanford student athletes can go to and have similar faces and opinions and ideas expressed for them. Whereas before, like, there wasn't ever a real formal organization for that. Stanford is a majority white institution. So sometimes it can feel isolating, specifically as a student athlete and all the stereotypes that come along with that. So having an organization that embraces all of those viewpoints and also has action items for things that you can do to actually better outcomes for people that you care about in the community, that was our goal. And unfortunately, people aren't on campus, so it's a bit hard to enact it from afar. But yeah, that's the plan for the organization. And I'm excited to see where it goes from here on out.
Perfect.
People are involved. Oh, sorry. How many do you think you have in that group so far? Sorry.
If I had to put a number on it, it would probably be around like 10 to 15 people. It's a bit harder for the football guys like me to be involved right now, just because we're in camp and in season. So like Maya Dodson and Kyla Bryant are really kind of taking the lead right now. They're doing a great job. And I'm forgetting some names right now, but yeah, I'd probably say 10 to 15 people.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it. Thanks for everyone.
Thanks, Thomas.
tuning
Thank
in.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We will have senior offensive tackle Foster Sorrell in just a minute.
RJ, hope that was okay. I was just trying to follow